Good evening and welcome to the stream. And obviously just as I started, somebody's decided to start drilling outside my house. So I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, so wanted to do the R's on the watch list, which is obviously the next thing I have to do, but obviously we've got significant moves off Bitcoin and the market in general over the weekend off the back of Trump's announcement of the crypto strategic reserve. So, like, I was having a quiet weekend, so I hadn't really updated. I'd updated all the charts for the monthly and, the monthly and the 2 monthly levels, but I hadn't updated really on the low time frames what was going on, so I kind of did a little bit very quickly at certain moments, but I hadn't really looked at, well, I'd looked at sort of the lower time frames, but not really thought through the higher time frame, and I still haven't. So I just claim that this whole stream from a Bitcoin and Ether perspective anyway. So Bitcoin, obviously we had this bounce at the weekend. We had a lot of ETFs selling off all last week. We had some buying on Friday, and then we obviously had the bounce. I was hoping initially that we come down for a retest of these levels, and I probably don't like them as much now. We've gone up so much in the interim, but there were a couple of levels, a couple of just low time frame 15-minute levels at the bottom here. Then I also added this entry even before, like I had this entry I think on Saturday, just when we were doing this little consolidation in the hope that this would just dip down a little bit more into, there's a 10-minute untested demand in there, which obviously it didn't get, it just went up from there and didn't retrace enough. It then made a daily demand, and they had a 4-hour demand, so I kind of left the alert in thinking, okay, what would happen to the daily, and we didn't do that either. It's now ended up that arrow has kind of broadly at the same place as where the CME gap is. So it's as of today, I just kind of left it in there and said, might get a bounce there. I've disclaimed this, and I'll get to Ether, the same on Ether, with the fact that this hit monthly supply. I'll look at the higher time frames in a minute, but this high was monthly supply. I had my next alert at the weekly in there. I did have another one or two, can't remember, looking at whether we were just going to get some low time frame entries on this 12-hour supply in here. I know I've started getting these Chrome notifications, but I wasn't getting these previously. Chrome has just done an update, and they're annoying me. But yeah, I think I was looking initially at, I was saying there was a lot of chop through here. These were the sort of critical zones that I was interested in. So we did obviously run through one possible short entry there, and obviously that would have been fairly obvious at some stage we'd take out this trend line, but I didn't necessarily expect that to happen quite so quickly on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. I can't remember exactly when it happened. But yeah, so still watch this level, but this I have disclaimed with the fact it's coming from monthly supply. So I'll get to the high time frame, but if the monthly does play out, I expect this to break. And today, in contrast, we have had a reason. We had some more BlackRock ETF selling this morning, but this afternoon we have seen quite a lot of buying from ARC and Fidelity. I need to confirm that at the end of the day because they could just be internal transfers, but I think there seems to be some buying going on in there, despite the fact that the price is falling. Ether was pretty much the same scenario, so I did have an entry for a short just on this zone here, and I was hoping again for a test of this hourly, but my arrow and my alert, again, you can see my alert was just below the wick. Again, there were two 15-minute zones and the naked point of control down here, so that's where I was hoping would get tested at the weekend, but again, just bounced just above. And then obviously we got the bigger move. We went through, there was a 12-hour zone here, and again, and I'd said in the alert that I thought we might go and take out these highs at the top of the zone, so that's why I had the cross there. This also coincides with the 2-month supply level on here. So yeah, and again, and hence the longs are now heavily disclaimed again with the fact that we are now coming from 2-month supply. I was hoping again, even Monday might get another push on both this and on Bitcoin, and I was hoping, that Monday might do a bit more consolidation up here and then go up in the case of Bitcoin into this weekly zone just above, and on Ether again just a little bit higher. But Ether's just been very reliable recently on 61 fibs. And that was also part of the reason I had it there. And it's difficult now. It's a little bit messy. and well, my fibs are well off the side of the screen anyway, but actually I think I've deleted the local one, but I think if you fib just this last down move, that was also the 61 fib. So hi AJ. Yeah, so you know, from a long perspective on Ether, or actually on both of them, I haven't really covered that. So obviously I was looking for a bounce like on the 61 fib of this move initially, but obviously then it went deeper, and then we were looking for a swing fail of the low because that coincided with various things on CME and elsewhere. So did get a nice long entry on that. On Bitcoin was just challenging, and again, if you've watched my previous streams, you'll know what my thoughts were. So we had two stacked 4-hour demands here, but obviously it wicked through both of them, and then there was a 12-hour and a CME gap below, and it didn't quite get even to that zone, so it was not the easiest entry in my opinion there, unless you were watching the very low time frames. There's obviously some people who are claiming they bought the low, and perhaps they did, but to me that's pretty much guessing, unless you were like watching the 5 or the 15-minute time frame and you got lucky, because it didn't even really give the test, like I said. Anyway, yeah, that's the low time frame. So back to the high time frame. So as I said, you know, this is, again, it's made a difficult structure. So I'll hide all my things so you can see. So we made a very clear monthly supply there. You know, it did close below. It was a significant close below. I generally prefer it not to test immediately, but in this case it has, and it's also rejected off it. So that was a, you know, a fairly easy short entry. If you were watching, this is real. What do you mean this is real? Is what real? It's real analysis, I like to think anyway. Yeah, so anyway, this hit a monthly supply and rejected off it. And as you know, we wanted this sort of 3-month zone to be hit anyway, so I kind of like that to happen at this point. The difficulty we have is what we also wanted was a swing failure on the weekly and a close back inside the range, which we've also got. So we obviously closed a very strong hammer candle, but it did not break supply. So again, back to all my millions of drawings, but if you remember from previous streams, like we had this, the whole consolidation was being held up by this daily demand below. And there's a 2-day on top of it. It's a bit messy through here, so that's why I've got a few too many lines, a few more than I'd like, but I might revise them. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted, close back up inside there. We didn't get it on the daily, but we got it on the weekly. But with the monthly supply, it then makes it challenging to know, you know, what's going to sort of win in this sense. You know, it's strong on the monthly and then weaker on the weekly, if that makes sense. Or so strong from a selling perspective on the monthly, but the weekly is stronger. So it's possible. So that, and that's also part of the reason for these long entries, that maybe we close the gap and get a bounce in here, and then go up to test in a higher in supply. But do know, yeah. So while I put an entry in, it is like a high risk entry in my opinion on this level. It's a daily demand. So I'd also like to see what a lot of the alts are doing. And again, in my previous stream, I went back and kind of, because this is slightly weird structure, it's unusual for Bitcoin to make that kind of structure. And I like to compare to previous patterns just to see how things played out. And there's a similar pattern here. And there's a few around, and I've said before, there were a couple that resolved to the downside, and there's a couple that resolved to the upside. So in this case, this one resolved ultimately to the upside. But the major difference here is, while this looks similar on the lower time frame, this tapped into 2 monthly demand at the base, and also I think I maybe only had weekly supply in here. It didn't have a monthly supply, and it's also hit a major demand. Similarly, I think, you know, this one, not or less similar than the previous, but again, kind of similar, where it consolidated and took out the highs and then came and took out the lows, which arguably is again a lower time frame, but similar to this consolidation where it's taken out the highs and then it's taking out the lows, or it's taking out the lows and closing back inside. But again, this is, again, while this is similar in that it didn't bounce exactly on demand, it front run demand by a small bit, but it also only had a weekly supply in there. It didn't have a monthly supply. And the other comparisons that I made were over here when it resolves to the downside. Yeah, again, these didn't have monthly supply either. So it's, yeah, a little bit more challenging, but yeah, just looking at local structures. This was, I think, I was comparing this top last week. Again, similar here, it took out the high and then took out the lows. But I was comparing it also from the perspective that this ground downwards and didn't take out, like normally when you see a stop hunt before a drop like that, but it didn't take out those highs, and then fell. And the similarity there was kind of like the consolidation we'd had last week. Again, let me remove my drawing so you can see a bit better. But okay, this took out some of the stops, but there were a bit of a grind down here and only took a few of the stops and didn't quite hit my short entry before dropping. So we've been thrown off by this Trump news over the weekend, and yeah, so now I just need to see what kind of follow-up we're going to get from this. My instinct is down because of monthly supply, so just be conscious of that and be wary of entering blindly into longs, or at least not holding on to them. I suppose the only other comment on that is, like down here we made a monthly supply. It wasn't as good a monthly supply as this one. And again, it did run through it. And here also we made a monthly supply, and this obviously had 6 months of consolidation. It did reject monthly supply, but it didn't retrace much before then again running through it. So it is possible this is going to run through it. It is still in a bigger uptrend. But it just, yeah, that monthly supply there just makes me slightly nervous now, or slightly more wary of longs. We basically have sort of pretty much the same on the CME pair. So CME opened at the monthly today, near enough, and then rejected straight off it. So that's exactly the same structure. We also have a bit of a challenge here. Like I saw some people saying the gap was filled. And I sort of talked last week about how you have the adjusted chart and the unadjusted chart, and I don't know which one's more valid, but from the unadjusted chart, this gap hasn't been filled. It's filled to about halfway. But if you look at the adjusted chart, we're using this in setting at the bottom right of trading view, you can see then the gap is higher and it has been filled. So the adjusted is just when they adjust for the contract rollover. And it does move the levels around a bit. I've remained inclined to use the unadjusted, mainly because the levels obviously align better with the normal Bitcoin chart then. The levels go extremely off the normal Bitcoin chart if you use the unadjusted version, sorry, if you use the adjusted version. So yeah, that's that. So I guess like on Bitcoin, we're really just looking for follow-up now. Are we going to hold? So are we going to follow a similar? So I guess you compare back to here as well, actually. So the other comparison was here from back in when's that, March, April 2024, and it was a very similar pattern. Again, if you followed me then, you'll know. Like, so we had again this daily demand that was holding up the whole consolidation, much like I've talked about this daily demand that we have up where the current price is. We fell through it, we then pumped straight back up above it, and then we held in that zone. So again, it's going to be interesting just to see if Bitcoin holds in this zone for that second push, similar to here. But again, note, the structure is different back here. We didn't have a monthly supply. I think we might have had a weekly, or I think we certainly ended up with a 3-weekly, but we didn't have a monthly back at this point in time. So this would have found it easier to get back up into there, whereas this has had a much more distribution looking like pattern here. There's going to be a lot of people who longed in this area that are going to want to get out at break even, that are now trapped, and that also is potentially why we slightly front ran that weekly level. So hence we're seeing that bigger sell-off. On the other side, we have, from the inverse perspective, we have US dollar dominance. This made a monthly demand. And again, like I say, I was hoping for that extra push on Bitcoin today in the hope that this would come down into the monthly. So as it is, it's just bounced off the 2-day, and then there's a weekly that it made as well, I think so this did just make a weekly demand. And it had a 5-day in there anyway, and it's just tapped off the top of that. So, and as I've said previously, so this is also equally challenging chart. It's in a major 6-month demand down here. We've got a double bottom. I did want to move a bit lower, which we didn't get. And I did also think that I should start using, let me just go to the other, felt like I should start also looking at the combined with USDC chart, because I felt that might be slightly more reliable. But again, so this has also come off the weekly in there, and the monthly demand is quite a lot lower on this. I think more people are using USDC now, so it might be more valuable to use the combined USDC and USD tether charts. But yeah, so anyway, obviously this is still holding demand. So while we've had a big drop on this and a big pump and dump on Bitcoin, this is still holding the local demand. So again, we need to just see what kind of a retest we get up here. It does have a daily supply in there, but that already rejected on the Sunday candle at the weekend. So again, this could still come up and take out more highs, and is still in a local. So we're still in a local weekly uptrend. My chart reload. It's going to be annoying. So we've got a 2-month supply above. Oh my gosh. Let me just turn this off. I did turn off my computer downstairs earlier, but let me just turn off trading view on my phone, because I think that's sometimes why this happens, because it's trying to background load on other. Now I can't even find it. I think it's trying to background load elsewhere, and that's why it reloads here. Anyway, so yeah, this again is just trapped between, we've got 2-month supply, we've got 6-month demand, so again it's just trapped, and is this going to get that bigger push and make it through 2-month supply, or again, we know, so we need to see some consolidation through here first. I hope this doesn't keep doing this, to see what's going to happen on this. What else? I don't think there's much else to say here. Korea is the only thing, again, that's a bit of a wild card as well. This didn't have any monthly supply on it, you know, is obviously still holding the consolidation better than Bitcoin is, having wicked through it previously. It also was set to potentially create a 2-weekly supply, but didn't. So there's much lower. This is much lower time frame supply on this. So again, you know, if Korea does start pushing, and if the kimchi premium kicks in again, then it's possible that Korea can take this up higher and ignore the fact that, you know, the US dollar pair has a monthly supply in there. But for the moment, yeah, my bias on Bitcoin is down based on that monthly supply, because that's the primary thing that I trade. And as I said previously, the levels I'm looking at ideally are this 3-month zone down here, near the 2021 all-time high, or starting, I think it's from 72k and below, and then there is the possibility of properly closing the CME gap at this 12-hour demand just below the current lows. But you know, if I'm wrong, if we get a bounce in here, then great, we'll see what happens. So you can keep an eye on this 84 kind of level. And yeah, for the higher low in here, if you get one, and then maybe it will get a push and go higher into the monthly supply before a later drop. But overall, like, my macro is bearish on this, even if it does come higher into the supply. I think that's probably about it on Bitcoin. I might just have a quick look at others while I'm here, just so I can see what this is looking like in the context of I know people are calling this for having, well, I say others is just rejected locally off weekly supply, and total 3 since we had a pump from some of the bigger majors. Yeah, again, that hasn't quite made a monthly supply. It's made a monthly supply, hasn't quite tapped the monthly supply, but again has come down off that level. And again, these are just challenging charts. You know, you can see this is on the 3-month demand at the base here. It's a second test of it. But we need to see a bit more, and we need to start seeing, you know, okay, so now it's arguably it's borderline having made a higher high, more of a swing failure than a higher high, but, you know, is this going to test here and give some long entries on alts? And others is basically the same scenario, like this came deeper inside the 3-month to the monthly inside it. But again, is this going to give a higher low now and give some respite to our dying alts, which really aren't doing very well at the moment? And others dominance, as I said, I didn't love it, and it's still not looking great. The only in the favor of others dominance, the only thing I kind of liked about this chart more than anything else, must be looking in the wrong place, I've got some old zones still in, is the fact that it's done a double bottom here. So again, that could give a push here, but I'm not overly confident, and it's also made, I think, a 2-month supply on this. So what we find on a lot of alts, and we'll see on Ether in a moment, is that we have this 2-month supply in there now. So be very careful which alts you choose to long, which ones you want to trade, because 2 months supply can very easily just reject as soon as we get a little bit higher and knock all the prices right back down, and I expect that. So others dominance is looking like that. So yeah, we don't have the supply on the others chart, but we do have it on the dominance chart. So again, just be a little bit wary of your alt trades, and I still advocate, I mean, I always advocate scalping over anything else anyway, because I think that will make you more money in the long run than, unless you're an investor and than holding for extended periods of time. Excuse me. Oh yeah, I'm looking in the wrong place, no wonder. Trying to get my head around, or just trying to get the hang of all the layouts in Trading View has been challenging over the years. I know how to use them now, but sometimes when I go back and I to other charts, I find the old zones where I haven't they haven't got the updates that the newer charts have. Okay, so yeah, that's about it on Bitcoin. Maybe I'll just do a quick summary. So, quick summary of Bitcoin. We have monthly supply, which has had the rejection this morning. The monthly for me is more bearish. The weekly we closed a weekly swing failure, which is what we want. So we closed back inside range, but obviously we're retracing a lot of that now. So while my bias tends to be the monthly playing out for more down, it is possible we pick up a higher low here. It's possible it doesn't happen immediately, even if it happens later. But then, so watch for a possible entry on the CME gap close around 84k. And then failing that, again, 3 month demand below, or if more optimistically on the CME gap close from the historic gap at around 76k. On the short side, if we do get another push, there's a weekly supply above, and then there's that untested 2-day, which I was wanting last week, the week before, to get tested, that also hasn't been quite tapped up there. So there's a couple of levels that you can look at there if we come up for more short entries. Ether. Connect, please. Thank you. So Ether, as I was saying at the start of the video, on the lower time frame, so this made 2 month supply, and it's had actually a very, very easy rejection off there. It was a very clear 61 fib retracement of that last drop, so there was a lot of confluence there. There was a 12-hour supply and then an equal highs above, so it's again not surprising it went up to take out those equal highs and tapped into the 2 month level before this drop. So again, like Bitcoin, so previously I wanted this zone to be hit, so I've left the circle in, but I'll hide that now just for transparency. So I was looking for a bounce either in that zone or swing fail of this low, failing that 3 month demand below. So yeah, we've hit the 2 month supply. So I was saying, I did disclaimer this possible long entry with the fact that coming off 2 month supply, I would expect this zone to break. But you never know, it might give a bounce in the interim, so worth watching that level in there. To the upside, I still haven't looked in, well, I kind of looked in more detail, but I've commented previously, I don't like that I have 17 levels in there where I would look for possible shorts. So, because it's so messy now above. But I put red on these two because these are the ones, so annoying. These are the ones I'd be more interested in. This is a question mark level that I've mentioned previously. It's a 61 fib, it's the old 2 month level. So if I show you the 2 month chart, so we had, I'll hide this, just get it a bit clearer. We had this, one sec, let's check my stream as well. I'm getting a couple of warnings, so I just want to check we're running okay. So we had this 2 month supply up here, and I was initially looking for shorts in that 2 month supply, but what we ended up doing is swing failing it, running just above, closing, and then swift drop and closing back below. So now we've created this new 2 month supply there, which is what I was saying about the short. But what can also happen is if when we run back through and then close back below, it's possible that level gets picked up again as resistance when we come back there. So while it didn't work first time, it could work second time. And that was the question mark that I had in at this level. And it's a question mark because there's not a local, I tend to prefer it if that situation happens with a local supply. And I think there's only a 15-minute in that area. But it's coinciding with the 61 fib. And the 61 fib, again, I've drawn slightly unusually, but I'm just like experimenting with them because there's obviously a lot of different fibs that you could draw on this old down move. So I've got the, the big one over here. And that coincides with the cross to the 61 level. But this interim one here, and what I was looking at was that we had, a drop off the high, we retraced, then we dropped to here. But this is not a significant break of this level, so I don't count that. And then obviously this is just sideways consolidation. So really for me, the last down move is from there to the bottom of the wick. And then now, obviously we've got a retracement and we've come back and taken out the bottom of the wick. But it's really this whole thing. And the 61 retracement of that whole thing coincides with that question mark area. So there's a few things in that area that I like if we get back up there. Big if. On top of that, there's this 4-hour demand here that was holding up the upper consolidation. And that can potentially flip to supply. So that's kind of why I'm looking at that question mark, and normally I wouldn't love that. But the 61 fib is a very common retracement area for Ether. So I don't want to forget about that and then end up front run. The 61 fib, but the bigger move, like I say, is this weekly. There's a 5-day, a 3-day, a weekly, and I think also there's a 3-week and a 2-week. So there's a whole lot of zones in here. So again, it's likely to be messy, but that's a level to watch just because again it's the 61 area, and then there's a couple of CME gaps above here, and that's the problem. Like there's a lot of confluence in a lot of these levels, and then levels up at the top that haven't been tested at all. So it's hard to know how much this is going to retrace. When I've again done that, I won't do my bearish comparison yet again, because if you've watched any of my other streams you'll know. But what I did look at was, so the fib of this drop, again it retraces to the 61 to 70 area and then drops, and then the bigger move over here, not sure what that's doing there. It was exactly the same. If we look at the big drop off the high in 2021. Again, it retraces exactly to the 61 fib, and similarly here, it rejected off the lows of these wicks. It didn't come properly into supply, so I just want to be conscious that the Ether can do that, like it can just front run supply if it wants to. So then that's hence the question mark level up there. So while we could get rejections on these interim levels, there's a weekly supply here. There's an 8-hour inside it, which is the higher cross, and then there was the daily above that again just got slightly missed when I was looking for previous short entries. So there are other interim levels to be watching, but the major ones that are more interesting would be up around the 3K and above area, and I guess 3K is also a fairly nice whole number. And then, as I've said, to the downside, we've got 3-month demand, and there's actually a 4-month demand in there as well, a 3-week. At the low, and then if I whack out my bearish comparison, then potentially this is weak demand. This is all weak demand. So yeah, again, just be wary, be conscious. Weak demand, if it's unable to break the high, it's weak demand. So far it's proven it's unable to break the high. And that's kind of what we're seeing here as well. It was exactly the same with this consolidation. It's been unable to break the high, and therefore when we come back to it, it's obviously just run straight through it. Plus it left a whole load of trend line stops. But really down here, we've got the exact same scenario in a much bigger, it's left a lot of trend line stops here that weren't tested. So from a bigger picture perspective, if we do come down here, we could very easily run through all these zones. What else on Ether? I think that's about it for now. It's not looking like it wants to stop at the moment in this, having closed the CME gap. I think there's not much different on the CME pair. I left this in here because so one of the things I was looking at for confidence last week was taking out those lows like the US dollar pair had, because this wick on CME hadn't, and then there was also this CME gap just at the bottom of this candle. So again, I was looking for that to get taken out. So, and also potentially dropping back into this weekly, which is exactly what's happened. The only thing I haven't done on this that I probably should is just compare the levels. So if this, you know, if we do come down and visit the 3-month demand here, which is at 1950, is that at the same area as the US dollar pair? So US dollars are very slightly lower, $20 or so lower, but just looking for that confluence. The Korean pair, I think, also made a 2-month supply. So again, that's, actually no, yeah, so sorry, it did. It came up higher inside it, but yeah, it made a lower 2-month supply. It's come up higher inside it, although not to the weekly supply either. But I think the 3-month here is actually quite a lot lower. So it is possible that if Ether US dollar drops and wants to get into 3-month, it's possible that it waits for this to catch up. So again, we'll see what happens as and when, as price develops anyway. I did clean up my charts a bit, but I feel like they're still super messy. The BTC pair, again, we were like hoping for the bounce off here, which we got, but again, not made it through supply, and is now continually making new supply. It made a weekly supply last week and is again dropping back lower, so this still isn't giving real signs of wanting to reverse. Yeah, it's down on the 70 fib. I mean, yes, it might pick up some fibs here, but there's no like real demand that I want to look for. I think I did look a bit further left, and actually there were so obviously it can come and take these lows out because that's what price likes to do. But I think what I did note actually down here was that there is a monthly and a 2-monthly zone here which wasn't tested back in March 2020. So it is possible we come and take out these lows into this untested zone. So that will be the next zone of interest on ETHBTC if it can't pick up anything higher. That's going to be down here at around the 0.02 level. So what else? I think that's about it on Ether, but yeah, again, just a quick summary of the levels of interest. We made a 2-month supply. We rejected immediately off the 2-month supply. We were looking for possibility over long in this gap close area, but very tentatively and warily given the rejection of 2-month supply. So the 2-month supply we expect to break demand. There were too many levels above to count, but my critical levels are around the 3K, 3,200 from various fibs and confluence with other historic 2-month supply and point of breakdown, various levels up there. So if we get a retracement to the 3,000, the low 3,000s, look for shorts up there. Yeah, to the long side, we've got 3-month demand incoming, but noting that it's weak demand, and that, again, it's very possible this whole area won't hold. But what we at least hope for is some sort of interim bounce, even if yeah, some sort of interim bounce, even if it can't get back up too much higher, but we're just looking to trade those little swings and scalps between levels. So yeah, that's it on Bitcoin and Ether. I see Bitcoin's still coming down. Yeah, the low time frames I'm still just going to need to look at a lot more. And tonight we also have Trump, I believe, is talking again about this crypto reserve, or I'm not sure if that's reality or if that's like hope from people, but Trump may be talking about the crypto reserve later on at I think 1:30 ET. So I'm not sure. I guess that's maybe 10 o'clock our time. I'm not sure. I need to check the time difference. So yeah, again, be conscious that we could get some movement later on this. But yeah, so I think overall I've covered what I need to on this, and my bias is down because of the monthly and the 2-monthly supply on each of these respectively. But that doesn't mean we're not going to get scalp bounces, nor does it mean we're not going to go potentially higher into each of those zones. You know, it's very early in the week. You know, we had a Sunday pump and we've just reversed the whole thing. I've also said previously that I want to see the ETFs start buying. So we did have a lot of selling last week, and then we had some buying coming in. Let me just show you this. So on the far side source, it shows we did have some buying from Fidelity and ARC on Friday. And today we're seeing, so on the Arkham data, today we're seeing we saw a lot of selling this morning from BlackRock, but there has been what appears to be some buying coming through on ARK and Fidelity later in the day. So in the hope that ETFs can pick up more buying, obviously the buying isn't really supporting price at the moment, despite the buying we're falling. But it is slightly unclear from this data, that from the transfers to and from it is possible some of these are just internal transfers and they're not actual buying. But that's hard for me to judge. I could judge it if I went and looked at the blockchain, but I'm not inclined to go that deep. The other thing of interest, this may not load because this was causing me all sorts of problems earlier. Okay. On Coinbase, so this is the heat map for Coinbase and for Binance. So I won't move around the chart too much, but you can see we do have all these stacked walls on Coinbase down from it's about 80k to 70k. They're not very big walls and they could get pulled out, but we could obviously see some support through here. Binance isn't mirroring that. So, again, it's not, you have to be conscious that while this may hold prices, that equally those walls can be like, what's the word, just fake and furfies to try and encourage people to buy, and then when the price actually hits that area, the buyers pull out. But that was just something of interest there. And the liquidation maps, nobody needs to see my WhatsApp notifications. This is a new Chrome thing that they've thrown in notifications, and I haven't changed the setting for that. So the Binance heat map again is not very useful on the low time frame, but I did look at the weekly earlier. Let's load this hopefully quickly. So you can see that obviously it's left now a lot of liquidations at above 95k. So again, just be conscious of that. That gives like credence to the possibility that we go back up there and take out those liquidations, go into weekly supply. And then obviously there's liquidations underneath these consolidations from the weekend. So we have to see if we wick through here. But again, we're looking for that higher low, but just be careful about possibility of wicks in this area. Once we come down another 5k or so, and maybe it's not as much as that, a few k anyway. But that's kind of all I want to cover on Bitcoin and Ether at the moment, because like I say, the critical things are the walls. I will have a quick look at the majors and then get onto the alts, which is like my main purpose. So obviously we had big pumps yesterday, and that in some cases it worked out very well on the long side, and some of the shorts worked, and then some of the shorts got blasted through. So I will just run through them very quickly. I haven't really put much new in on these, so again, just look back at the previous videos if you want to see the entries and the more detailed analysis. Litecoin, I've just been sort of looking at trades up and down really. Very nice long entry last week, and then just came back up, and we had like 1-2 day supply in here. I think it might have taken a little wick through it, but again, it's eventually played out for the short on that. Ripple obviously had a bigger, like I threw in another more aggressive entry on 3-day supply here. While price is moving slowly, but obviously it's run through that and then to come up into this, there's a 2-day and 4-day, but again, just rejected just very slightly before the level. But that was another entries I had previously. Ripple's been harder on the low time frames. These obviously, so that one I think got the bounce but was slightly early, so I then reset the alert in case its swing failed, again just hoping for a push at this point up to there, but it fell first. And in fact has just fallen straight onto the yearly level. So you can look at this, watch this. This did make a new weekly demand here. This probably is not a very pretty one, and it hasn't broken supply. It certainly looks a lot less pretty now. It's fallen back inside. But you can potentially look for long entries on this daily demand at the bottom here. I might set an alert for that a bit later, if we don't fall off a cliff in the interim. But yeah, that's a possibility for long entries down there. And Ripple, as I've said, is just a more of a challenging one, because I just don't know if this is a bigger distribution pattern. At this point, it could still be a bigger distribution pattern, or it could be a reaccumulation. And the Bitcoin pair is helpful with this. So if this is something you want to trade, I would suggest looking at the Bitcoin pair and seeing if this a long entry here is supported by that chart as well. Failing that, obviously I've talked many times about the lower zones, but it's nice that it's holding this yearly level here, so you can use that as an invalidation. If you get a close below this yearly level, just get out. BCH, So I did put an aggressive short on this on the 2-day supply in here. It just got a little move before like running through, and it's actually been one of the stronger ones today, running through the zone. With hindsight, that might have been a little foolish, because I do know this is on 6-month demand, but I still wanted lower, and I guess I've been probably a little bit over focused on the possibility of this running down and taking out a lot of these stops through this 6-month demand. And at least all going to test this monthly level that's been missed just below. But I did this before on Ripple, actually. Like I've talked about wanting a monthly level tested like long before the pump on Ripple, and it did eventually test, but it took about a year. I think it was doing much similar to this. It was bouncing just above, so I kept just missing it. But then it would, not like it would come back down immediately. It would then mess around for a long time before eventually it finally hit the zone. And yeah, so BCH is kind of interesting. It has made a new daily demand in there, and it has held it. So again, I'll just keep an eye on this over the next couple of days. I don't know if we're going to get 3-day, we're going to get any closes of higher time frames. So 3-day, 2-day. So 2-day, we're going to get a close today. So you can look for 2-day demands. 3 days, not till the day after tomorrow or tomorrow. 4-day and 5-day. I have another few days for those as well. The other thing we had on alts is it did look like, so most of them had this 5-day supply, and in this case it's wicked through it, but a lot of them looked like they were going to convert that 5-day to a weekly if that previous candle closed below, but it's flipped back through, so there is a possibility these are going to turn bullish now, but I, again, just wanted to see the retests first. So EOS, again, so that the aggressive short on 2-day supply in there has obviously worked quite well. That's also now just that tapping down into this new daily demand it's made. So again, we just need to see, are these going to hold? Is this going to make a higher low? EOS was one of the ones I was more bearish on. Just overall the chart's just pretty nasty, and it is coming off 6-month and I think 3-month and 6-month supply at the highs. Again, it is on monthly demand, so that doesn't mean, it can still hold here even if it's coming off, and we expect some sort of a bounce, and so far the bounces haven't really gone very far. Like, I would much prefer the bounces to be going back up into the new supply. On these as well, I guess what I haven't commented on, I think it's only relevant to EOS, so EOS has made a new monthly supply up there, so I think I've left the alert lower but commented, there's a 4-day, then a 3-day supply, and then also the 1 month just above. So the 1 month starts up, 78 cents. So some of these might get run through in favour of the monthly supply. But given we haven't had much of a bounce off the lows, it is possible these are going to get a little bit of a run into the supplies, particularly if Trump makes some positive comments later today. Okay, so that's the old majors. The new majors, obviously, ADA's like the biggest. So we had, I think the comments made were ADA, Ripple and Sol that Trump mentioned by name. So Ripple bounced, but not a great deal. Sol and ADA bounced significantly more, and ADA, I think, the most of all of them. So ADA did have a monthly supply, and it has gone right to the top, and I think just wicked through that zone. I'm going to leave it in there though a bit while I just see what plays out. I did disclaimer this, and I think I've talked about it in my previous videos as well, that while I put shorts on supply in here, it was and is coming off 6 monthly demand, so I did expect this to break. But again, it's like, are you going to get a move like that just takes out supply immediately, or quite often you'll get like this, and it, like, at least and then each of these swings are tradable. So that's why I still put in like the possibility of short entries or long entries, even if my bias is the other way. So again, you just need to do your own market structure analysis and make your own judgments. But yeah, bear in mind, like this, where I put alerts doesn't necessarily always reflect my bias. And sometimes I'm more on top of the charts. Like here, that looks bad here, like I'm longing the top, but on the lower time frames, it gave a nice scalp from 12-hour demand up into a 12-hour supply, I believe. And there's nothing wrong with that either. So it just depends how you trade. And that's why you need to watch my analysis to know the detail of it. So yeah, ADA here has made a new weekly demand. So I think that's certainly worth watching for new entries. Let me see if there's anything inside it. The only problem with this is, I think I'll alert the weekly just to see, but I don't love, again, you know, when we've got a big candle that runs through the weekly, it's possible it still bounces off the top of the weekly here, but it's also possible it's just going to retrace this entire candle and come back into the consolidation at the bottom. But yeah, that's certainly something that's worth looking for a long entry, either if it hits the weekly or lower time frames, to see if we can get another move up on this. BNB, delete some of these. So this, I was looking for, so we had a bounce off 12-hour demand, but again, it's slightly front run the zone, so I looked for a second one. It came down a bit deeper in the zone this time, but did give a bounce, but again, hasn't now gone very high off there. So BNB, again, I'm bullish on in the bigger picture because it has 3 months, 2 months demand in here, and it's come off at the yearly at the lows, but that doesn't mean it's, again, not going to go down and retest that. So at the moment, you know, again, we're looking for that higher low. I don't know if we're going to get it at this point. Like I say, it didn't go up very high through supply here, which we would have liked really to be more confident of looking for a higher low on the long side. But if it drops down, so you're looking close back to that yearly level to see if it gets a second test of that level. Link. Again, so I was more bullish on this, but this has, again, not gone very far. But now it's coming back into 12-hour demand, so worth watching this. This is a 6-month zone, so I was more bullish on this because of the fact it's the first hit on a 6-month demand zone. Obviously, it can come down deeper inside, so I have an alert set for here. But again, this is something that you could potentially look for longs for. I don't like that it's already tested that zone, really. I don't know. You might get a long here, but it's going to be very dependent on whether Bitcoin and Ether are going to play out their monthly and 2 monthly supplies respectively, because if they start playing out and for a bigger drop, then obviously these are going to fail. This is a bit close, so I'm probably not going to get to setting that alert before this video ends, so I'll just, but again, you can watch in there. And Dogecoin, which I replaced with Pol because I thought people would find this more interesting. It's made a new monthly supply up here. And I did have an alert for weekly supply in here, but it's rejected slightly lower. So again, it's come off a swing fail of a daily demand. I just wanted this a bit lower, and I'll be much more interested in this once it hits this annual zone down here. Whether it's going to bounce through here and give another up move before that, or whether it's just going to come straight down there, I don't know at this point. So this is not something I want to trade at the moment. I would look for longs there, and I don't know, that alert's still there for that weekly supply, but be conscious that while I've alerted the weekly supply there's a monthly up here, so I need to think about that. I might take that alert out now because it's rejected so close to the area. But yeah, again, across the board on these, so we did have monthly supply on ADA and on Dogecoin. We've only got some weeklies on Link, and Link again, so those zones above on Link I've just disclaimed by the fact that so there was a daily supply there. I was first one I've alerted, but I've disclaimed that with the fact this is also coming off 6-month demand, so could run like ADA has if it wants to and just blast through a few zones. And Sol, so Sol I did set, so Sol's a challenging one again, so it is on 2 months demand, and I was looking for longs in here if you've watched my previous videos, but it's also made a monthly supply up here now. So again, you know, is this going to be enough to send it through that? I'm not sure. You know, it's a very long consolidation. I've previously likened this to the lower time frame Ripple consolidation, you know, where we have this triangle and then we distribute and then we run back through the triangle. So there is still a possibility this does the same. But anyway, you know, given having trading in both directions and hoping that we get some follow-up here, I did have a long alert that just went off, I think, at the start of this video for potentially looking for a long off this new daily demand there, given it's on the 2-month overall. So first hit on supply, so it's a risky entry, but you can watch there to see if the low time frames give you something. I think I did also have an alert on this. There was a 2-hour, so unfortunately it did not. So I did actually have an alert on this 2-hour here at the base, but this consolidation didn't come back in to give me that long entry down there. So again, if we do come deeper inside, you know, watch that 2-hour at the bottom as well for the low time frame possibility of a move. And then if the zone fails, there's this monthly demand below. This is rather annoying. I have all my WhatsApp notifications turned off as well, so I don't even know why these are coming up in Chrome. Okay, and then, okay, so we've got Atom, Near and Dot are all pretty much looking the same, so they all, like, I won't go into too much detail, they all just pump back up into their respective 5-day supplies and have just coming back down, and you can see here that Atom's already had made a daily demand, but it's already just run straight back through it. So again, I'm still holding these ranges and still not looking very exciting, so I think that looks like it's going to have been a bit of a fake out, at least on these alts. And then the ones that Trump actually mentioned that actually might be part of the reserve maybe are going to get moves later, but these possibly can still drop lower. So I still need to check lower time frames on these, so I can see near here. Actually, that got a new, that looks like it's a new 2-month supply. So again, this is like similar, so some of these look a bit similar to the Ether structure. It's a new 2-month supply there. I think my alert is just for the daily inside it, 2-day supply inside the 2-month. On Atom, we have, I believe, a new monthly. So yeah, Atom, again, is a bit messy, sorry. It's got a new monthly supply, it's up here, but again, my alerts, I've gone more aggressive. It's a bit more like Doggy, where I think it was Doggy, one of the other ones, God knows now, there are so many of them, where I think I put the alert that there's a 4-day and then there's a week, 1 week and 1 month, so it just depends on the strength going up, whether it actually tests the monthly. And Dot I don't think has any monthly supply, but yeah. So the alerts will just remain the same as previously on this. But yeah, that's fairly unfortunate that we had this big pump yesterday and that it really is retracing seemingly virtually all of it, and I don't know now, maybe Bitcoin and Ether are breaking down while I'm talking. Let me have another quick look. Okay, so we've had a bit of a wick through that 4-hour demand on Ether, so it's gone a bit deeper inside, and then Bitcoin's still trying to hold this 12 hours, gone through the 15-minute. Yeah, these aren't looking overly promising as yet. And Ether, so again, just be wary on Ether also whether we're going to make a daily supply in here, because if you are getting into longs at these levels and hoping for that higher low, if it makes a daily supply, you should get straight out. But yeah, I think that's all I want to say on the majors anyway. So just like I said, be conscious of what's got new monthly supply, the odd one has weekly demand, but for the most part we need to just watch and see if those are going to hold. Obviously, like Ripple, we can see now is coming back down deep into that weekly. BNB was just average. ADA is the one probably of most interest. Let me just throw that alert in while I'm here. Yeah, ADA particularly also because of that 6-month demand at the base. So we'll just keep an eye on ADA. And then yeah, so ADA and Sol are probably the two that, if we are going to get a continuation on this, they're the two that are probably more worth watching than anything else. Okay, and then on to the alts and the Rs. So I've had already, we're only like the start of March, and I've already had, what's this, I don't know, 20 or 30 alerts come through. Again, all still performing pretty nicely. I was going to run through these quickly, just to give you an idea of, you've probably seen a lot of these before, but just to give an idea of the kind of scalps and things that you can get off these alerts. So as I've explained many times, let me just light a cigarette quickly and have some water. Just a protein shake. And so I've said before on the alerts that, yeah, it's really up to you how you want to trade them. I think I did a long educational video about this. So if you want to trade high time frame, then there's a very different way than if you want to trade scalps. And for me, I set them based on scalps. If you want to trade high time frame, then you need to assess what the market is doing as they hit, and whether whether new supply or new demand has been made. Because in some cases, I've set them a long time ago, so they can get hit much later. So I've just noted a rogue line, but no, that's not really a rogue line. Okay, so ACT. So I was quite liking the look of this, but it was still sort of struggling a little bit with supply. We had a sort of rejection just before the 2-week up there, and then a rejection on 12-hour in here, but by then it had started making a lot of new demand. But again, it's still running in a sideways range, so this can still go either way, and it's in the middle of the range. I had a long entry on, I think, 4 or 5 day demand there, which gave a move, actually did make a higher high at that point, and then it came back down, and it made a 2-day demand by then, so I think I threw in another alert, and that obviously got a bounce yesterday, but has now retraced quite a lot of that. So there's kind of nothing really new I want to trade on this, but gave some quite nice scalps off the alert. I think it does actually, it has made a new weekly demand on this, or it was already had. I think maybe that's why I liked it. It had a weekly demand previously. You can see in amongst all my mess of levels, and also it has a new 2-weekly demand. So again, kind of worth watching this if it can drop a little bit lower again, if it still consolidates and holds around here. It has left quite a few stops underneath here though, so I don't know if it might do a stop hunt, so it's a little bit risky, that one perhaps. AVAAI, this long entry yesterday, so that's played out pretty nicely. I need to run through these and update all the other alerts. Yeah, I kind of didn't really like this. I wasn't really convinced by this because of like the mess here and the wick that we've got on the long side, but I think it is in an overarching monthly demand here. So this could get a move up. Bake, wow, it's down 21%. So yeah, this had hit into a 12-hour zone. It's probably been a bit too... So when you have a big pump like this, then obviously it tends to retrace. Whether you then get a follow-up pump tends to depend on how quickly that retraces. And in this case here, it's retraced pretty slowly. It's been days, this is a daily chart, so it's been days in a drift of death. So just be, so something like this. So this 12-hour demand entry is much lower probability than if it had come back down really quickly in a couple of days, made it up into here, and then pushed up. We've actually also got a daily untested just below, so this could dip a little bit lower inside. And again, I don't even know like the bigger picture, whether this potentially could be the low on the bigger picture. But again, yeah, nice short from the upside, and then just see what happens on this possible long entry here. Maybe wait for a little bit lower. Bid. So very nice short entry on that, hit, when's that, the 1st of March, so a couple of days ago. So what's that, a 4-day or a 5-day supply up there? No, 3-day, can't even read my own colours. So yeah, quite neat 3-day supply. It's a weak supply, but still can get that reaction, and it is coming, and it was weak supply, but it also had the overarching weekly supply up there. So worth looking for shorts. But again, it's just trading little in the range, that first short entry, while you're looking at a downtrend like this, it's fine to try that. In this case, it failed, went up to the next supply, nice short, and then a long, want to retest demand. I can't remember, I think this, maybe this, normally when I put a black cross, it means that this has just missed a zone, and that I'm looking for a swing failure. So obviously it didn't give a swing failure there, came down a bit deeper. And I guess there's a 12-hour and 8-hour demand somewhere at the bottom there, which has then held the price. So again, just trade each of the scalps you can in the range, and you're trading the extremes, so that the tops and the bottoms of waves are going to give you the best reactions. Burger. So this is like actually not dissimilar to a bake, which we just looked at. So again, as I said, if you have a big pump like that, if it retraces pretty quickly, in this case obviously didn't hit the demand there either, but if it retraces pretty quickly, then you're more likely to get a follow-up move. This, regardless, still gave a follow-up move. This was, I think, pretty high risk. Up here I can see we've got a yearly supply, and then we've also got a 6-month that's a bit lower, and then possibly a new 6-month might come in the next, obviously, 4 months till that closes. But yeah, again, so just, I tend to put disclaimers. I say this is daily demand, but just be aware it's coming off yearly supply. So, but in this case, it has given a nice reaction regardless. But that's something I need to look at again. And then I had a follow-up short for this daily supply there, which has hit nicely. And then we've got a possible daily demand here. And I think, again, just worth pointing out that while we get this bouncing around, if your overall trend is down, then once you've had, 1, 2, 3, then it's much more likely this one's going to break. So that's becoming lower probability, looking for higher lows there. And like, is this well, I guess it's from a high time frame it's down because it's got the yearly supply, but I guess it's really sort of sideways. But yeah, that's just worth noting. So just trading these backwards and forwards, as I say. Cook, this was a high risk long entry. Oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. This is a high risk long entry on daily demand in there, but obviously has had a bit of a bounce there. Obviously it's got a long way it could go if it chooses to, but it's high risk at this point. You know, it could very easily just do a little move like that and then collapse. Like, it doesn't even have to give the bigger move. But again, it was if it's made a clean daily demand like that, it's worth watching. Some will work and some won't, and a lot of it depends on what point the market's at when these things hit. Flock. So this, I would say, is lower probability daily demand than Cook than what we just saw, because this is now coming off a weekly supply. So obviously I've had the alert for the weekly supply in there. It's had a little rejection. It's gone a bit higher inside it and it's come back down again. But again, like I said, my preference would have been for this daily to hit back here. Like, you really want the immediate test. Now it's coming off supply. It's much more risky, but we'll see what we get off this, and again, just be conscious of what it's got above. So in this case, it's got a 5-day supply above. I'm only looking at these very quickly. It has no weekly in there, but it's come off 5-day supply already. But yeah, so really what I'm looking at is just all the different, what new supply has been made since I've set the alert. So in this case, it's made a new 5-day, it's rejected it. It's made a 2-day, it's rejected it. And now we're back down in the daily demand. But again, if the market's going to be strong, then this could be a really nice risk entry. So you've got the risk entry and the confirmation entry. So at this point, we know we haven't got through supply. This is a risk entry. Once we get an up move that ideally goes through supply, but also confirms that this is actually starting an uptrend, then this is this is what's called a confirmation entry. Grass. So, oops, still got my drawing on. So this, we had a very nice long entry off, I think it was a 5-day that I had alerted inside the monthly down there, really nice long entry, and it's come all the way up into 3-week supply. And I've talked in previous videos quite a lot about this actually, that we had, this would have had, 3-day, 2-day, 1-day, weekly, 5-day, throughout. Like, a lot of the alts look like this, and we've got supply. And I said, in some cases I've alerted and in some cases I've not. That you need to kind of make a judgment as to whether we think we're going to retrace that whole move. You still probably expect some sort of reaction off the top, even if we are going to continue up, because in this case, we've got the bigger monthly uptrend. So this, I would have gone more conservative because of the fact it's coming into monthly demand and because of the fact it's really choppy on the way down. But I've kind of alerted a mixture of these, so we're going to get kind of a variety. I'm not sure exactly when I set this alert, but rather annoyingly it appears to have missed. 12-hour demand inside 5-day, coming through 3-week supply, so I think maybe I only said it recently. Let me have a look at it. Yeah, I think just because it is in a decent up move, it's coming off 3-week supply, so it does make it risky. But if it retraces just to the start of this last up move, then it's possible we get some continuation from there. So I've set that for a long, and then obviously you can watch this for shorts if you get any build up. GRIFFAIN. I had a second hit on this daily demand, looking for that second test to see if it was going to bounce, and it gave kind of a nice move, but also did have a 3-day supply immediately above, so that's something to be wary of. And then we've also got 4-day, 5-day and 3-day supply up here, so that's where I put the next possible short entry on this. Yeah, so I wouldn't probably look to enter that, although it is holding despite the rest of the market. But yeah, this 3-day supply obviously makes that a bit of a risky long entry there. HBAR, the cigarette I talked about. HBAR, I think the alert was on the 2-day supply inside the 2 weeks, so it's unfortunately slightly front run it. And obviously this is one of the strongest for some reason that I'm unclear on. It does have a 3-month demand down here, but I did have the aggressive entry on the 4-day, 3-day demand. I commented that it's 3 months and 6 months below, and I think, yeah, so probably those are the two the two levels really that are higher probability. Now this is coming off a 2-week supply at the high. I've got a floating cross up there. But anyway, yeah, so decent reaction on that. IOTA, I think, also had a very nice reaction. IOTA was a very random pump yesterday. I don't really know what that was, how that was part of everything else. But yeah, it's come straight off 2-week supply there. And it had made a weekly demand. So again, maybe IOTA's going to do something, who knows. But it's not come a bit back too quickly into that weekly demand. It does have a daily here, so again, if you want to look for longs, that is a possibility. You can get a long off the daily there, but bear in mind it's coming off the higher time frame supply, and I haven't looked at this on the macro for a while, so I'm not sure. But I guess this is kind of, you know, it has broken structure here. It has broken this last down move. Yeah, it's a messy chart really, but I mean, if we say that's the last drop there, it has broken structure, so looking for a long on the retest is decent, but obviously you prefer the long to be at a much bigger discount than what we have currently. But you know, if you really want to trade IOTA, there's a possibility of that daily demand there. L3, this has just been trading up and down. I've talked about this a few times. I was kind of unclear of where to put long entries on this, but I kind of went with a 2-week demand, I think, eventually here, and then it's come straight back up into a short entry on 3-day supply. It's now made a monthly supply above, so I put a new alert there, but again, yeah, just both directions pretty nice. MASA, moving, too much detail on these. I did have one of those random Chrome notifications go on this, but I don't know if I had an alert here. No, it doesn't appear to. It's quite weird. The notification came in, but it's not actually showing in my trading view notification, so I'll assume that isn't actually a notification. 8-hour demand. Yeah, so the only thing, so I set this alert for the low here. I think this is really high risk, really, because it's got a 2-month supply on this. It's come off weekly supply, but it's possible it swing failed the low here. So I put a possibility of a long entry in this 12-hour demand, but gave a very nice short entry regardless, but that's a high risk long entry, but it's possible if it had swing failed the low there. NS, yeah, okay, so I had an alert here for 3 weekly supply, but obviously it's taken a giant wick right through it, and as I again commented that early, you know, that was possibility with a lot of these structures, and particularly with the low liquidity coins. And then obviously it went back through it, but then I'm looking for that re-entry, so I set an alert there for yesterday for a short entry on this 3-day supply in there, so that's given a decent reaction to start off with there. Needs to break this low, and then potential long entry back down here. Pi, I'm guessing, so I feel like I might regret this. So this did hit a daily demand, and one of my group mentioned it, although I wouldn't have looked, and then because it made a new 4-hour demand on top of it, I kind of thought, okay, well maybe I'll just throw an alert in for a long entry on that 4-hour just in case it bounces early. My preference on this was always down here on the 2-hour underneath that daily, because it hasn't quite tested there. So that's where so if this does drop further, you can watch here, and then failing that all the way down there. And maybe this will hold. It still seems to be building, but I guess we'll see. Just hopefully it won't build another set of trendline stops. And the main reason I wanted this zone is because I wanted these trendline stops to get taken out. And if it's making a whole new set of trendline stops here, then again, that might happen. Plume is rather disappointing. So Plume, I just updated last week. I put alerts on the upper trend line, on the lower trend line. I got 2 long entries off this, but it failed. You know, the alert did go for breaking this trend line, but I said in the group, just be wary, because it went at the point Bitcoin had pumped. And so I said it's probably worth leaving that until we see what Bitcoin's going to do. So obviously it's retraced a lot more. It's back on weekly demand now. We've already got the entry off there. So I don't know, there's no other long entries that I wanted until down here. So if this, if this is now going to fall out the bottom of the triangle, then this alert will go for the bottom of the triangle. That's a potential short entry. But again, I'll just see what new supply or demand's been made on this. Pol, again, very nice short entry on that. Back in daily demand, looks like it's going to run through it. But yeah, nice short entry off weekly supply on that. QUBIC, I think, is similar. yeah, that was an aggressive short on immediate test of 2 month supply, and I talked about this in my last videos as well, like where alts have made the 2 month supply or the monthly supply. What we could potentially see in the first few days of the month is them to test like this, and then immediately drop. And these can potentially lead to very big moves. So I said that was certainly worth watching. And I haven't got loads of those alerts in yet because I haven't covered most of the alts updating for the 2 months yet. But yeah, these are the things you should be really acutely conscious of, that while, you know, okay, yes, this looks like it may be a swing failure of the lows, you know, it may be trying to push back up and just be a deviation of this low. If it's going straight into 2 month supply, that is not a trade you should be taking, or not in that direction anyway. VVV, again, this is one that's just taken far too long to hit this zone. But again, I like the slowness of it in a way. You know, you know, if you do have this slowness, while it can mean it's also made a 4-day supply that it's, sorry, a 5-day supply that it's rejected off, and then a 4-day lower. Yeah, I'm not liking the supply build up on this, but it has tested each of those lower zones at least. But what you can find, let's take my contact lenses out there. Eyes are going blind. So yeah, when I look at it like this, I feel more bearish on it. But when I look at the lower time frames, you can see that's already wicked up into that. You know, it's obviously got to come past that first daily supply there. But when we do see, like, again, this chop going through, you know, like if it does pick up support here, it is possible. It's just going to pump a big candle through all this. So I don't know, now I'm thinking maybe I should remove that short entry up there. Yeah, I feel like that's not a high enough probability, so I'm going to take that one out now. But again, yeah, watch this for possible long in this area. I'll take that out as well, because if this does make a higher low now, then it's possible it can just run. Big if, so don't FOMO into longs, but again, wait for some confirmation. And finally, ZIG. So this is just it's been a real mess. So I had an alert go here for a break of this trend line. It wasn't really a firm break. It was possibly on too low a time frame. Then I put in a short. So what I do if we do get a break of the trend line. Okay, so ETH is now dropping even more. If we do get a break of a trend line like this, I look at where the nearest supply is, and then I put a potential short entry on that. So that did get a reaction on the lower time frames, but then it's come back up higher. So now I made a monthly supply, so this was a better short entry at that point, but it still now again needs to break the trend line, and hopefully more firmly now it's rejected off monthly supply. Yeah, so that's all the alerts for March so far. So doing pretty well, I think, on the whole. And then finally, for the purpose of this stream that it takes me like an hour to get to, is Bitcoin. Ooh. Bitcoin's hitting my level, is to get to doing the R's on the watch list. Let me have a quick look at Bitcoin and Ether first. Yeah, so Ether's just run straight through that zone and the CME gap. So exactly what you'd expect for a 2-month supply, really. Glad I disclaimed it. And then yeah, these kind of couple of untested levels that we had down here. I actually forgotten the alert was still on these. But yeah, it's looking like Ether's going to just bail down here. Since Bitcoin's still got a bit to go, unless Ether can get the bounce and they can hold for a bit, and then Bitcoin takes this out later and comes down later. But I'm not overly confident of that at the moment. Okay, so on to the R's. So again, I'll just do the kind of updates and more detail of the first couple just so you can see. But you know, again, I think most things are following the same structure if they're on the more bearish side, and then a handful on the more bullish side. So this obviously has made a 2-month supply. and I think it had a monthly already, or it's got a monthly inside of 2 months, so I've alerted that for a short, and then it's got a 6 month demand down here, but obviously this is from when the candle like opened on MEXC, so it may not be the most reliable level, but again, that's where I look for shorts, that's where I look for longs. And like I said, what I'm seeing on a lot of alts is, you know, we've got these new 2 month supplies, then I think this might have risk. I put a lot of the, so this is actually not a 2 week, I put a lot of the weeklies in assuming they were going to confirm. As I said on the majors, so this had a 5 day supply, but obviously it hasn't confirmed the 2 weekly, although it has used the level to reject, you can see there. So it's rejected off. I mean, arguably that is a 2 weekly, to be honest. I don't know, I feel like I want to draw it back. But yeah, so decent bounce off here, but obviously looking likely to take out that low, and structurally really should take out that low before it's going to bounce, and then optimistically, if it gets a bounce on this 6 month level, and then look for shorts back up here in monthly supply. So that's RACA. RAD is just breaking down and looking fugly. And again, I've just put a mixture of the alerts on this. So some of them, so this has got a yearly supply, so I've just gone way more conservative on this. There's by no means does that mean it's going to go all the way back up there. It has a 2 month much lower. In some cases, yeah, so in this, you can see it's wicked all the way back up into there. So it has, where they've done a lot of tests like this, then it becomes obviously harder to know, like it could still reject here if it comes back. But I think in this example, I've gone more conservative on the possible short entry based on the fact all these levels in between have already been tested. But you know, I mean, that's not even to say that it's going to get past this immediate 5 day supply and even make it up there. But if it does head in that direction, then that would kind of be my more confident short entry, or possibly this 2 month inside. Wrong colours on. This 2 months, sorry, a little bit earlier, but again, just the low time frames don't really support that. So obviously no long entries on that. Rare obviously now is looking like it's going to break the low. It did have a monthly demand. I haven't set an alert on this low. It's also made a 2 monthly supply, so again, I've just gone more conservative on the entry on that. So yeah, there's a mixture of conservative and more conservative and less conservative. Obviously this has a 2 week and weekly supply in between. So it's, but I think again, something like this, it's possible if it swing fails the low that it will take out this zone and go to the higher. If it breaks down from here, then that becomes a more reliable short entry. Ray, so this one was just blasting through, but again, yeah, so this alert I would have set somewhere over here. So not surprisingly, it's gone through that. So this has came back down into monthly demand. I did have a long alert already go on that, but obviously it hasn't gone very far, so we just need to see if it's going to hold here or if it's going to go down, and you know, more alerts coming through now, go down into this 2 month zone inside. You know, it does have a lot of demand here, but then also again, like I've said with so many alts, it's got these trend line stops. It's also coming from annual supply at the high, so something like this, you know, we do run a fairly big risk of this just ploughing straight back through everything. But yeah, that's where to look for longs if it gets there. That's where to look for shorts up at this monthly, weekly supply in here if it gets up there. RDNT, another one that just looks horrible. So I've set an alert for the 2 monthly supply there, but it looks like it's created. It's definitely created. I know it closed above, so it hasn't quite created the weekly in here, but as I've said, you know, it's had the 5 day instead. It hasn't quite confirmed that to a weekly, so I'll just change that back to the 5 day. But yeah, some of these are just going to be fine just to look for follow-up short entries on the lower time frames as they continue to drop. But if it does come back up. REI I kind of liked, but again, just needs time and needs to see if it's going to play out. I like the fact this is on 6 month demand. I was hoping it would swing fail that low. You know, it's come back into whatever long entry I had there on weekly demand. I've set a new alert. If it drops deeper, there's a monthly down here. But yeah, keep an eye on this in case it does manage to build up some support here. It's got the 2 monthly supply above, but again, I would potentially expect that to break if this does hold. So we're kind of on something like this. I'd be looking at, you know, that's your impulse. This is your correction. what you would then want at least is for this to still hold, but that to happen. So this potentially is still worth alerting, but then maybe just give you a retracement before a further push based on this 6 monthly demand. Render, so this has annual demand. So yeah, I'm more bullish on this, but also is it going to come right to the bottom of annual demand? I don't know, but I just want to be, be conscious of the grey area. There's a weekly, so I've set this alert, so there's a 1 week demand, and there's a 2 month inside, so there's 2 month and 3 months demand around here, so I'll be looking, that would be ideal long entries there, and then if it really does fall, it's got the 2 month support right down the bottom there. Also it's got a 2 month supply. Again, some of these, so this is projected off the level before it's confirmed, so again it makes it harder to know if it comes back there, is it going to run through it, or is it now just found some resistance there. This is still holding weekly demand here, so prefer short entries if it goes up higher. I've got a weekly and monthly supply up the top there, and again still at risk because coming from annual demand, so I put that in the alert that it's coming from annual demand. And if we do get a drop lower, then you can look down there. Just a bit choppy and messy. So some of the older ones, the problem is even if you do want to take longs on them, they're just really choppy, so you need to be trading pretty high time frame to take the longs for swing trades, like take them for scalps by all means, but yeah, they're just going to take some time. You can see here, got time to build up before we get the moves. So REN is another one that's just dying. I think this got delisted, I think, in Binance, or maybe just futures. I'm not sure if it was all delisted or just futures. Had an annual supply up here, so it has rejected. I'm not sure if maybe that confirmed this year, so no, that's just confirmed this year. So if it comes back up here, I would look for a short again there, but again it's rejected lower time frame, and then also it's rejected this monthly supply on that candle, so I just haven't charted this for quite a long time. It's made new 3 week, 2 week, weekly supply above. So I'm not sure why I went so conservative on that short entry. But also it's challenging because, so the reason I'm just pausing a moment is because we've got monthly supply, and you can see that wick's just tapped into it there. Just here. And then it's dropped. Then you've got 3 week supply, and you can see this wick hasn't quite hit that level. Then if we go to the 2 week, there's a 2 week in here, and also, sorry, there's the upper 3 week as well. Then there's a 2 week in here that also hasn't been tested. And there's a new 2 week just here. So it just becomes, then you can just go the most aggressive one. So, you could just look for shorts here. Because once it starts moving up through here, then it's probably going to go to the higher level. And I think maybe it's actually worth having that. I might pull that alert down. And I don't know if this is an all-time low or if this is just a max C chart, but yeah, so look for slightly more aggressive shorts on REN. Is Ether going? Now all my alerts coming through. No. It's this Chrome. Turn off all notifications for Google Chrome. That seems to be the right thing to do. Okay, so Ether's now back down in this low level, and it's got a bit of green on Ether, so that's promising. But less promising is the fact that BTC has not yet filled the gap. Well, let me check. No, yeah, it's very close to filling the gap, but hasn't quite filled the gap. So BTC can still go a touch lower. So yeah, keep an eye on Ether there. REC, one of the more just sideways charts, I guess. So we did have a rejection here of annual supply, and then it's come back down into demand, and it just has been going sideways ever since. The preference is with this annual supply to take out demand and make a lower low. That's, yeah, so the bias is still overarchingly down, but obviously it's taken, how long it's been up here for, like 2 years, or no, 1 year. 1 year of sideways. So again, I think I had that alert in there previously and thought, well, why not? I'll leave it there. So there's nothing clean up here that I would want to look for shorts on, but if we get to this excuse me, nothing clean here I'd like to look for shorts on, but if we do get a random pump up into here, you know, it does like to wick this, then we can potentially look for a short there. And again, like the lows, you know, it's made a whole bunch of equal lows down here, so I would like to look for longs on weekly demand should it get down there. Rex. This is one of the strange MEXC charts when it's been closed for a while and then it reopens. I think this is normally so 19th of August and then 16th of December, so that's sort of a 3-month gap. No, actually longer, 4 or 5 month gap. Okay, so let me just see what this has done. Okay, so it hasn't quite made a 2-week supply, but it's still not looking that crash hot. These notifications just have to go. Turn off all notifications for WhatsApp. So yeah, we've got a nice short entry off of, I guess, the weekly or the 5-day supply in there, and now it's starting to look like it wants to break down. I set an alert for the low here, I believe. Yeah, it was watched for the breakdown, so obviously I don't really expect it to swing fail there. Maybe it will, but if it closes below here, then I'd very much be looking for short entries on the retest. Because obviously then if that does drop, and I have seen others looking like this that do, then obviously it can come down quite a lot if it wants to, so that's a very nice one to potentially look for a short on if we get the breakdown once this alert goes at the low. Res, another one that I sort of put an aggressive long on. Again, it's retraced a lot of this first wick, initial wick. It has got a, what is that, a 4 or 5 day demand in there, so it's a risk entry, but worth watching for possible longs in there. And then it's got monthly supply up here now, in fact 2 monthly supply, so I've set an alert for 2 monthly supply up there. But you can keep an eye on that for aggressive longs. RIFSOL. I'm confused by RIFSOL and RACA, because RACA appeared to be the same as Ray, but RIFSOL doesn't appear to be the same as RIF. They seem to be sort of I figured there would be some consistency, but no. So on this I've gone slightly more aggressive. It actually has tested the weekly already, but because it's in such a huge downtrend, I kind of thought, well, let's see if it comes back and gives a rounded retest into that zone. And if it does, you can look for shorts there. It might be too aggressive, but we'll see. RIF is also just collapsing now, so last hurrah level, 3-day demand down here, and don't necessarily expect this to hold, but just to see. I don't want to put on the alert there. 3-day demand. Oh, it is inside of 3 months, so it's possible. But it has had multiple tests on this 3 month already. It's also got a 2 month supply in there, but again, I went slightly more conservative towards the upper side of the 2 month supply due to the fact it's still holding a 3 month demand. If this then falls through the 3 month demand, then you can potentially be more aggressive on shorting this. Overarchingly, it's coming off this annual supply up here, so as I said, we do expect to take out that low with the play out of the annual. Hopefully I'll give a bounce in the middle though. RLC, another one that's looking not very nice, and it's just messy. Again, I just went for retest of the yearly level. I think I originally had the alert all the way down here and then decided that was a waste of an alert, but B, it's just too far away, and I would expect some sort of a bounce in between. So if it gets a bounce on this yearly demand, that's just a sort of retest of that annual level. It's also another one that's got 2 months supply, but again, if it holds the annual level, it's possible it can run higher, so I just went slightly more conservative on that entry. Obviously probably didn't like too much of around what was at the low call level. It does have a nice clean 4-day in there. Yeah, I think with all the stops, again, it's just hard because, you know, is it going to want to come up and take those stops into this untested 3-week zone? Or is it just going to reject as soon as it can and drop? It's quite hard to know. So it's just a collection of entries, a collection of different levels that I put in, just so we get alerts at every level and there's always something to trade. RUNE. This is in a 3 month demand, so obviously it had its first bounce off the 3 month and is now just dropping back to test that low. It's another 3-day demand slightly below, and there's also a monthly in there, so it's an historic monthly, so it's not ideal, but worth watching that 3-day because of the overarching 3-month that it's in. Obviously you don't really want it to retrace that whole thing, but again, so we're just looking, ideally if it gets a bounce in here, you know, maybe it'll get a swing fail through that zone, so keep an eye on that in case it wants to run into this 3-week level. And then similarly another one that's got 2-month supply, you know, it had a monthly up here that it didn't quite hit, and then 2 monthly supply here, so, and it's also gone very close to hitting that. Again, more conservative on the 3-week supply inside that, based on the fact it's potentially coming off 3-month demand. Rose, not many R's left. Another one that's starting to look increasingly ugly and is looking like it wants to go down and take out these lows. You know, had a bounce, tried to make a higher low, succeeded in making a higher low, but hasn't gone anywhere. It's just consolidated and dropped again. Another one with a 2-month supply, and I think that maybe there's a 3-month demand in there at the moment. The wick might have been very, very close to taking that out though. Another one with 2-month supply, but again, just gone slightly more conservative. Higher inside the zone for looking for possible shorts. Yeah, hard to know what these things will do. I think I was thinking about this when I was doing the alerts, actually, just to sort of give examples, because they are this is not the best example to use, I don't think. I remember what I was looking at the time. Anyway, my point was, you know, you've got these down moves. You know, here it happens to have gone through there. That's quite, you know, maybe it had some higher time frame level there that stopped it rejecting there. But like, I think, yeah, some of them, what you're really looking for, it's off again. So like if we had this last down move and then retrace and then drop, so that's still your last down move. So you're still looking for, you know, shorts based on this last drop until here, you know, at this point it makes a higher low and then you've got your risk entry. But you know, now these are just really just choppy and sideways. So, you know, arguably this could be an uptrend. You know, we've got the risk entry retest and then it's taken off, and now we're retesting the start of this up move. But it's just choppy and messy. Really quite hard to judge some of these. And again, just the lack of history, so it really waters the trend, because the trend is different on every different time frame. This was not the best example to go into on that anyway, but whereas obviously I'm expecting to take out the low. RPL has been another really ugly one. Straight up into annual supply, rejected off that, gave a really nice retest here into 3-week supply. So yeah, you know, be very aware. Always be very aware of the high time frames, and exactly what I was saying on BTC and Ether earlier. You know, this is, it can look strong here, you know, it's holding a higher low, but if it's going straight into an annual supply, that's what happens. Similarly here, you know, again, that looks like a very strong move, but it's gone straight up into a monthly supply and then 3-week inside it. And thus, you see the drop straight off that level. And you can see very clearly on the higher time frame. So yeah, don't get sucked into, oh, that's a really decent big candle, because if it goes straight into supply, then obviously you don't expect it to hold higher lows. Yeah, so this is just dropping. You know, I didn't have any extra long entries on that. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's probably made a new, actually maybe not, saved itself just from the new 2-week supply in there. May confirm that at some stage. 3-week weekly. Yeah, so no longs on this. Shorts, if it comes up there might be some better shorts that you could have it more aggressively, but I'm not going to update the chart now. Let's just drop all the way down. RSR. Yeah, these are the other charts. I think I was getting mixed up. I was charting things twice. So this is one of the ones that is more bullish, but again, in annual supply. So even the ones that are more bullish quite often are equally as challenging. So come off annual supply, obviously we'd hope for some sort of a bounce here. We've got a monthly demand, and then I think there's a 2-month underneath that. So we hope for some sort of bounce here. It's had one maybe on a weekly just above this zone. Oh no, it has actually tapped the monthly there. Hasn't gone very high and is now retesting. So we can keep an eye on this and see if this is going to give another long entry there. But annual supply, I wouldn't really trade a second bounce on demand after when it's coming off a much higher time frame zone. So I would much prefer to see this lower now, and or just wait for lower time frames. obviously does have a new weekly supply on this, so it may not make it all the way up there, but again, monthly demand is possible. If we give this a bit more time, this might give you a long entry here. RSS3, another one that's basically going to hell, has a 2-month supply up there, and also has dropped below the yearly level, and I think I've again just been slightly more aggressive on the possible short there in weekly supply, but there's another weekly supply that's now been confirmed just below, so it may not even get back up there. So I might even need to be even more aggressive on my short entries with some of these. RUNE somebody asked about earlier actually, because I think it's had, for some reason, it's had a lot more activity on chain today, or maybe not today, but yeah. So this, they apparently went bankrupt, so hence this fall off the cliff. It was quite a random fall off a cliff when the rest of the market wasn't particularly falling off a cliff. It's come straight back into it, so that's why it ploughed through that long entry there anyway. It's come back into support and the 3-week demand that's holding up this consolidation. I think I had an alert here and then I removed it because I thought, like, if this is bankrupt, I don't know if we really want to be looking for longs. But maybe I can put that back if they are actually trying to fix their bankruptcy issues. So I'll throw in an alert on this 1 week demand down at the bottom there and see what we get there. And again, I went, because of that bankruptcy, I went more aggressive on the short entry, but it hasn't even got up back to test that yet. And if failing that, you know, it does have the monthly supply up above and the 2-week inside it, and you know, the chop like everything else has. So I don't know, I'd like to say with alts we're going to see some random pump that's going to take us through all the chop, and it's possible because the others in total 3 charts, as I said earlier, are on major demand. But we still need to see a sign of that starting, some sort of a pattern, some demands start to hold. And finally on the R's is Raven. So Raven was in an overarching annual demand, but each bounce off it, despite going deeper, is unable to make a higher high. So now we're probably at least looking for it to take out that low, if not go lower. But yeah, there's nothing really I want to long on this now. I mean, the annual demand makes it still possible. You know, it can still go all the way to the bottom of the annual demand and finally get the pump. Again, like if you want to trade this, I would suggest looking at the BTC pair. Had a weekly supply there, it's just rejected off that and it's dropping again. I think so. I did have a short entry, 2-day supply and 3-day inside, but it's also now, you know, the 2 monthly overarching has got the 2 monthly zone in there as well. Noting as well, like so a lot of the alts where we've got these 2-month supplies, and in some cases they're comprised of 2 candles, they're not necessarily strong because they haven't broken lows significantly, like in this case it's wick below, but some are even at higher lows. But what we do also have is a lot of them are going to create, or potentially going to create, a 3-month supply as well. And that, if that happens, I think I'll probably be a lot more bearish on the market. I mean, two months tend to be less reliable, and people are obviously less inclined to use that time frame. But yeah, 3 months are going to be much more reliable. So if we can't get bounces that take out some of the 2-month, or at least negate these 3-month supplies, then it's potentially not going to be great for the alt market for the rest of the year. But I don't know, we shall see. I mean, you can see over here actually even saying it, you know, it's made a 3-month supply there and it's tapped off it and dropped lower, but that's obviously also back when it had very, very little history. But yeah, so Raven isn't looking overly promising at the moment. It is still holding demand, but only by a hair, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so bounces off it. But you can watch potentially for swing failure below those lows. I might put an alert on that just for the hell of it. Am I in the right? I'm just in the text box, not in the alert section. Equal lows, in case it gives a swing failure. But I've got to say, you know, I can set the alert, but it's not necessarily going to be the best, because it's got the 2-month supply immediately above. It's not really the best risk to reward, unless, you know, swing fails and does actually do a random crypto actually kicks back into the game again. But yeah, I'll get onto the S's. So that's pretty much it on the R's. I'm going to get onto the S's now, but at least I'll be able to have a better sense of what the 2 months are looking like when I go through those charts. and hopefully we get some more promising looking things, because I have to say, like, of all those R's, I don't think there was really one in there. What was the REI? It's like a maybe, but it's certainly not ready. Rex, I think, was a very nice short if it works. Res. So we had a couple of maybes, but for the most part I'm pretty bearish on all of the R's, unless they give me something significantly better. But like so many of them now have either fallen off support and are just continuing downward, or are very close to looking like they're going to break support. I mean, yes, possible again we get a swing failure on something like this. So you can keep an eye on it. But yeah, I can't say I'm overly confident at the moment of the market. Anyway, that's about it. I haven't had many viewers today, but my stream's a bit later than normal. As always, any questions, please join my Telegram. Please like and subscribe if you're interested and you want to see more. Join Telegram to ask me questions or talk to me directly. Watch my educational videos on supply and demand if you're confused as to why I have 8 million colours and what they all mean, because they all do mean something. And yeah, then I'll see a bit more of what Bitcoin's going to do, see if Trump manages to mess with it this evening. Let me actually look quickly at... Are we... what is it? 1:30 EST in GMT. Probably say 1:30 PM. That means that's going to mess with my head now. 1:30 PM. That probably means just 6:30. I know it's 6:30, so I guess it's already happened. So really, the Trump news was a no news then, I guess, if that's already happened. So that's pointless. So, but yeah, I guess maybe that's why we're seeing the big drop now, because the Trump news wasn't really or didn't reveal anything new up and over and above what we saw yesterday. But yeah, anyway, so see if we hold here. Bias is down on pretty much everything because of the monthly supplies, and if we start to see breaks of those, then great, but until then we've got a way to go. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Like I say, like and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.